My name is Daniel. I work the night shift at a remote highway station in West Texas. The kind of place no one remembers unless their car breaks down at the wrong hour. Most nights are quiet. Too quiet. Just wind dragging sand across the road. Just headlights cutting through the dark, then disappearing forever. There's no town nearby. No radio signal. No help coming if something goes wrong. They told me this job was easy. Sit under the lights. Log the plates. Don't leave the building. What they didn't tell me is that the desert watches back. It listens. It remembers. And it follows rules. Last night, one of those rules was broken. And something finally stepped out of the dark. If you've never worked nights in Texas, you don't understand how loud silence can be. There are no cities out here. No traffic hum. No distant sirens. Just wind scraping sand across asphalt. And the occasional howl of coyotes somewhere beyond the headlights. The station sits alone on a long stretch of highway, a square of fluorescent light in the middle of nothing. Truckers pass through just to stay awake. Migrants sometimes stop for water, eyes tired, voices low, always in a hurry to disappear back into the dark. Most nights I don't even see faces. Just headlights. Engines. Dust. Roy hired me on my first day, without much of an interview. Old guy. Sunburned skin. Coffee-stained teeth. The kind of man who's lived too long in places people forget. He slid a clipboard across the desk and said, "Job's easy. Stay awake. Log the plates. Don't wander." I asked him what he meant by that. He just shrugged. Desert ain't a place for curiosity. Roy works days. He leaves before sunset and never stays late. Says his eyes aren't what they used to be. Says nights belong to younger men. I asked about the guy before me. The one whose name was scratched out on the schedule. Roy paused longer than he needed to. Sipped his coffee. Then said, he quit. No notice. No goodbye. No forwarding address. That should have been my first warning. Around 3:17 every morning, the cameras flicker. Just for a second. Static lines roll across the screens, like something brushed past the lenses. Maintenance says it's the wind. Says sand gets everywhere. But there are nights when the monitors show movement shapes just outside the edge of the light. When I look up, the road is empty. No engines. No footsteps. No reason for the security lights to start flickering like someone's walking through them. I tell myself it's nothing. Fatigue. Night shift paranoia. But the desert doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels occupied. And whatever's out there is learning my routine. Around 3 a.m. that's when things start to feel wrong. It's the hour when the road goes completely dead. No trucks. No headlights. No reason for anyone to be awake out here. That's when I started hearing footsteps. Not running. Not dragging. Just walking. Slow. Measured. Like someone pacing the building. At first I told myself it was the wind. Texas wind gets everywhere. It rattles doors. It carries sound. But wind doesn't stop when you stop listening. These footsteps did. Every time I held my breath, they paused. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Every angle was clear. The road was empty. The desert sat still under the lights, flat and harmless. But when I looked up from the monitors, I felt it again. That pressure between the shoulder blades. The feeling you get when someone stands too close behind you. I didn't turn around. I told myself I was tired. Third week on nights. Body out of rhythm. Mind filling in gaps. That's when I saw the silhouette. just beyond the yellow security lights, standing where the darkness begins. It didn't move, didn't wave, didn't step forward. It just stood there, perfectly still, like it was waiting for the light to fail. I checked the cameras again. The spot where it stood was empty. No shadow, no shape, no heat signature. But when I looked back through the glass, the silhouette was still there. Closer. My mouth tasted like dust and metal. That burned smell drifted in through the vents, like overheated wires or sand scorched too long under the sun. I told myself it was the generators. Old equipment. Nothing more. Then came the knocking. 3 slow taps. Not loud, not urgent. Patient. I froze. No one knocks out here. People honk. People shout. People don't stand in the dark and tap gently on the door. 3 more knocks. Same rhythm. Same force. I checked the cameras. Nothing at the door. Nothing on the road. Nothing moving anywhere near the station. The knocking came again. Closer now. Right on the glass. I stayed in my chair. Didn't speak. Didn't move. Roy's words echoed in my head. Don't wander. The knocking stopped. Silence rushed back in, louder than before. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow. Controlled. Right outside the door. I stared at the reflection in the glass, half expecting to see something behind me. There was nothing. But I absolutely knew, that if the lights went out, whatever was standing there would finally step inside. I didn't sleep the next morning, and I started counting the hours until my shift ended. Because something out there was learning how long I stayed awake. I found the rules at the end of my 3rd week. They weren't pinned to the wall. They weren't posted anywhere official. Roy kept them hidden in the bottom drawer of his desk, beneath old log sheets and broken pens. A thin stack of yellowed paper. Edges curled, stained with something dark and brittle. Blood, maybe. Or rust. Out here, it's hard to tell the difference. Roy called them guidelines. But they weren't written like safety rules. They were written like warnings. Like someone survived and didn't want to remember how. Rule #1. Never step past the yellow light after midnight. At first, that one sounded simple. Common sense. The lights mark the edge of the station. Everything beyond them belongs to the desert. But Roy underlined it 3 times. Hard enough to tear the paper. I realized why on my next shift. Just past the yellow glow, the darkness doesn't behave right. Headlights bend. Shadows stretch too long. And once, I saw something standing just outside the light leaning forward, like it was being held back by an invisible line. When the bulb flickered, it leaned closer. Rule #2, if someone waves from the dark, do not wave back. The note beneath it was shakier. Different handwriting. It mimics. That was all it said. 2 nights later, a shape appeared near the road. Human outline. Arm raised. I almost waved out of habit. The arm lifted higher. Fingers bending the wrong way. I dropped my hand. The shape lowered its arm too. Slow. Mocking. Rule #3, don't answer voices calling your name. This one had names scribbled beside it. Crossed out. Written again. The desert remembers who dies out here. It remembers their voices too. I heard Roy once. Calling from the road. I didn't answer. The voice kept talking anyway. Rule #4, if you hear a woman crying near the highway, Lock the doors. No explanation. Just a prayer written underneath. Some nights, the crying sounds close, like it's coming from the shoulder of the road. Other nights, it sounds like it's already inside the walls. Rule #5. Never follow footprints that lead away from the highway. Tracks in the sand don't behave right. They appear too clean, too deliberate, always leading somewhere darker, somewhere quieter. Roy wrote one last note here. If you follow them, you won't hear the screaming until it's too late. Rule #6. If the lights go out, the sentence stops there. No explanation. No comfort. Just a smudge where the paper tore. Because whatever lives out there doesn't hunt in the dark. It waits for it. After reading the rules, everything made sense. The cameras. The knocking. The waiting. This place isn't abandoned. It's contained. And the rules aren't for us. They're the only reason it stays outside. The first rule was broken just after 4 a.m. Headlights appeared on the road, slowing as they approached the station. That alone wasn't strange. People get tired. People pull over. But the car stopped outside the yellow light. The engine stayed running. I stayed in my chair. Hands on the desk. Eyes on the monitors. Roy's words echoed in my head. Never step past the light. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. At least, I thought it was a man. He stood there half-lit, like he couldn't decide where he belonged. Then he waved. Slow. Careful. I felt my hand twitch. Rule #2 burned in my mind. Do not wave back. The man tilted his head, smile stretching too wide, like he was remembering how faces work. That's when he spoke. Daniel, he said. My stomach dropped. He said my name perfectly. Same tone Roy used. Same rhythm. Rule #3. Don't answer. I didn't respond. The man's smile faltered. His skin shimmered under the lights, reflecting sand like glass. Like something wearing a surface it didn't understand. Then I heard another voice. Behind me. Help us. I spun around. The station was empty. When I looked back, the man was closer. Past the yellow line. The lights flickered. His shape bent. Limbs shifting. Joint angles wrong. His mouth moved, but the voice came from behind me. It smiled like it had practiced. That's when I ran. I locked the doors. Killed the exterior lights. The crying started then. A woman's voice, soft and broken, right outside the walls. Rule #4. Lock the doors. The crying turned to screaming, then silence. Footprints appeared in the sand. Dozens of them. All leading away from the road. Rule #5. I didn't follow. Something screamed anyway. By the time the sun came up, the car was gone. So was Roy. And the desert was quiet again. Too quiet. Because whatever took them didn't need to hurry. It knew I was next. I don't work nights anymore. I didn't even finish the week. When Roy didn't show up the next morning, I told myself he was sick. Or drunk. Or stubborn. Then I called his phone. It rang from inside the station. That sound, his ringtone, echoing in an empty room, was the moment I understood. He wasn't coming back. The county sent a deputy out that afternoon. A young guy with mirrored sunglasses and a tired smile, like he'd already decided I was
another night shift. He walked the property.
Checked the logs. Looked at the cameras. The footage from 3:17 a.m. was gone. Not corrupted. Gone. Like it had never been recorded. He asked me if I was on anything. If I'd been sleeping. If I heard coyotes and got spooked. I signed a statement anyway. I handed over the clipboard. I turned in my keys. And I left before sunset. I drove east until the sand turned to scrub. Until the horizon looked normal again. Until I could see other cars around me and believe I was still part of the world. For 2 days I kept checking my mirrors, expecting headlights that stayed too long. Expecting a silhouette in the distance. Nothing followed. Nothing that I could see. I moved. I found a different job. A regular one. Daylight. People. Noise. I told myself I was safe. But the desert doesn't care where you live. It cares what you learned. Some nights, when the house is quiet, I hear it again. Not coyotes. Not wind through trees. Wind scraping sand across asphalt. Except there's no highway outside my window. Sometimes my porch light flickers, just once, like it's testing whether it still works. Sometimes I find footprints in the dirt near the steps. Too clean. Too deliberate. And once, I woke up to knocking. 3 slow taps. Not loud. Not urgent. Patient. I lay there in the dark, eyes open, heart hammering, remembering Rule #6. If the lights go out, I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't even breathe. The knocking stopped. Then I heard my name. Soft. Perfect. Daniel. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from the other side of the bedroom wall. From outside the house. Like the desert had found me anyway. I don't answer voices anymore. I keep the porch light on. I keep the curtains closed. I keep the doors locked. And I follow the rules. Every single one. Because I know something now. The desert wasn't empty. It was patient. And if you listen long enough, it learns how to sound like home.